When the lights dim, the tree returns to storage, and the holiday fades into memory, what's left behind? A new year often begins with lofty expectations, what we want to achieve, who we want to become, and what we hope to gain. But how do we pause and cultivate gratitude for the blessings we already hold? Today, we're thrilled to welcome Karen Wingate back to the podcast. Karen has this remarkable gift for reigniting our sense of awe and wonder in life and in God, even when the unexpected disrupts our plans. Karen was born legally blind and lived in a world of darkness until a life-changing restorative surgery unexpectedly improved her eyesight as an adult. For Karen, this new vision is nothing short of a gift from God, and she embraces it with a heart full of gratitude. You'll see that Karen finds joy in the smallest, most ordinary moments, and she shares her powerful story to inspire others. I know that you are going to be encouraged as you begin this new year listening to Karen's story and wisdom. Before we get started, registration for our upcoming life groups is now open. Have you ever felt weighed down by past pain or unhealed parts of your story? A Reclaimed Life Group offers a safe, confidential space to process, heal, and take intentional steps towards the abundant life that Jesus promises. Together with other women on a similar journey, you'll explore your story and move forward with hope. We offer Monday or Thursday night groups that meet virtually so you can join from anywhere in the world, and they are led by a qualified leader over a 12-week period. For more information or to register, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Reclaimed Story, or just email me directly at podcast@reclaimedstory.com. Now, let's kick off this episode with Karen Wingate. Welcome to Living the Reclaimed Life podcast. I'm Denisha. We're glad you're here for conversations that revive hope, inspire healing, and encourage you to live a vibrant life with Christ. So grab a cup of coffee as we chat with today's guest. When we were processing the episode in December, and if you missed Karen's episode in December with us, please go back and take a look as we talked about life with God and the wonder and awe that God has given Karen in her personal story. Should we recap maybe a little bit? Do you want to share a little thumbnail version of your story for those who may have missed the other episode?
Yes, I shared about my journey of receiving better eyesight than I had ever had before. I shared about how I was legally blind for the first 55 years of my life, and then a chance surgery gave me eyesight that I had never had in my life before. And I was able to tell about all the new things that I was seeing and how I was able to see God in those new things and saw that His greater plan for my life and saw how He had just orchestrated this journey from the very beginning.
And it was so encouraging. Personally, you really spoke to my heart to just look for God in the daily things that we often take for granted. And hearing the way you express that awe and that wonder of God really just encouraged me. So thank you for sharing, and definitely go back and check out that episode with Karen. And you had already written an award-winning book called With Fresh Eyes that we talked about in the last episode. And this month, you have not one, but two new books coming out in the early 2025 here, January 28th and February 4th. You have two brand new books coming out. Can I just say one book is an amazing accomplishment? Now, this is book number 2 and 3 coming in within a week of each other. So tell us a little bit about Grateful Heart and With Open Ears.
Well, I'll start with Open Ears. That book does the same thing with the gift of hearing and sound that I covered in With Fresh Eyes with eyesight, that I explore God's wonderful gifts of sound. I had to ask myself, if everybody's telling me what a blessing it was to hear about how we can look at life with fresh eyes, well, maybe I've been guilty of taking my hearing for granted. And so I started to look at all the things that I could hear and just pondering the sounds that God has put in our world and why He did it. And then the second book is called Grateful Heart. 60 reasons to give thanks in all things. I shared in my story how the surgery that I had was a very risky surgery. The doctor had warned me that I could have lost my vision instead of gaining. Well, he didn't think that I would gain new vision. He was surprised too. But I had to ask myself, what would my attitude be if I had lost eyesight rather than gained it? Would I still believe in God? Would I still be grateful to Him? This Bible verse in 1 Thessalonians 5:18 says that we're to give thanks in all things. How is that possible? And so I started a quest to find out, how can I stay grateful in all things?
And that, in all things, inspired our series this month called In All Things. When we were talking about that, how are we grateful in all things? You said a phrase that I had to write down because I thought it was so good. This is January of a fresh year. And what do we tend to do in January? We tend to heap expectations on ourselves. I'm going to lose the 10 pounds plus that I gained over the holidays. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to read 52 books this year. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And we heap these expectations. But what you reminded me is, how are we grateful in all things? When the Christmas lights go out, when the family's all gone home, when maybe we had unmet expectations and Christmas wasn't what we wanted it to be. Maybe grandma didn't behave well, and we come out of all of those emotions in all things. Then we heap expectations on ourselves. So even though we think of November as the gratitude month, right? We think of Thanksgiving as now we're going to talk about what we're grateful for. But I love when you said that, when the lights go out, the family's gone home, I thought, oh, we need to talk about in all things in January, because this is when we have an attitude of gratitude, right? I know that's such a common theme that we hear or say, but it's a way of being that in all things we're grateful. Tell us more about that.
I agree that the first of the year is a great time to do that reset of how can I be grateful? How can I sustain my gratitude to God for who He is and all that He has done, even when life has gone back to normal, overwhelmed, the normal struggles that haven't gone away, that didn't get swept away with the Christmas debris. They're still there. How can I stay grateful? And so in my quest to find out how to stay grateful, I came up with about 5 different areas where I could maintain that level of gratitude throughout my life. And it not just taught me how to be grateful, but it taught me why I can be grateful for all things, no matter what that situation is. And so over our next few moments, I'd like to unpack that list if I can. And the first step is to be grateful for what you have. In November, the typical things that we're thankful for is faith, family, and football, and food.
And food, yes.
And it's easy because everybody's doing it. It's easy to be thankful for, and let's put in fall colors in there since we're on a roll here. But what are the things that I still have, even when I have lost my family has gone home, even when the bills have come in and I owe money on my credit cards? What do I still have? And the first thing that I still have comes up every morning. It's the sun. The sun will always be there. Now, you may be saying in your part of the world, it's January, the sun ain't shining. Yes, it is. It may be hidden behind a cloud, but the sun is still there. It will always come up. It comes up so regularly that scientists have it figured out down to the minute of when it's going to rise tomorrow. We have God's gifts that we may not necessarily see, but they're still there. God has given us the gift of time. All of us have 24 hours. It comes from God. I can thank Him that He's given me time on this earth. I can thank Him that He will manage my time for me. And I don't have to worry about whether I'm going to be late to somewhere because He's in charge of my time. And He'll take care of me. My favorite discovery was the idea of books. Now, I'm an avid reader, and so I very much appreciate books. But it was my daughter that really opened my eyes to the blessing of books. She said, "Mom, there are many languages that still have no written language, and therefore they do not have copies of the Bible. My daughter is working in Bible translation. But she said, it's not just the Bible. Imagine, they don't have a written language. Therefore, they have no books. In her presentation to groups, she shows bookshelves for those of us who have written language. And then she shows bookshelves for those who do not. You're probably a thought ahead of me. Those bookshelves are empty. They have no books at all. What a blessing for any of us if we have books on our table, on our bookshelves, or on our apps.
Yes. Personally, I refer to myself as a book hoarder. So I have many, many books. And the thought of not having any books is kind of a wake-up call there. So that's definitely so many things we can be thankful for the things that we have.
I'd suggest people make a list. Just take a legal pad and just start listing all the things that you have, all the parts of creation that God has put around you. Be specific. Don't just say flowers. List the kind of flowers. Look at the sun, the stars, the sunsets. Look at the unseen things like gravity and time. There's just so much. We could spend several hours just discussing all the things that are right here. And then thank God for every single one of those. So that's one. But sometimes I'm still a little grumpy, and I like to look at what other people have and not what I have. Or it's out there, but I don't have it right now, right here. I spent a number of years in the Midwest, 3 hours from the famous Sheds Aquarium, and in the 10 years I lived there, I never got to see it. So wanted to, but never got to. Then we moved back to Tucson, and we walked into my favorite restaurant for my birthday one day, and my husband was paying the bill. And this particular restaurant has for a restaurant, a large fish tank with some unusual fish. And Denisha, do you know what I did? I said, oh, I wish we'd been able to visit Sheds Aquarium when we lived there.
I would have thought the same thing.
Here I had a beautiful fish tank right in front of me. And think of how unusual it is. 100 years ago, people in the Southwest would have never seen a tropical fish.
Good point.
What a blessing for us to have any sitting right in front of us. God just wanted me to change my perspective to be thankful for what I had and not what I didn't have.
So good. And that's that comparison. Boy, don't we do that. Or we either compare to what others have, what we could have, or comparing a fish tank to an aquarium and thinking that is better. So often, I know I wrestle with that, focusing on the destination instead of the journey.
Yes, good way to put it.
I love that.
And I also learned that we tend to be more enthusiastic in thanking God for the things that we like or the things that are convenient to us, or when life is going well and life is pleasant. And then when those things get taken away from us, suddenly we start pouting. Jonah had that problem. In Jonah 4, Jonah was very thankful for that vine that God had grow over him to provide him shade. But then the moment that gourd was gone, Jonah went back to pouting because he didn't have his little tree anymore. But I do that too.
Me too.
I'm grateful for the things that I like. I think of food. It's easy to be thankful for the foods that I really like. But if somebody serves me like sweet potatoes, I'm not so grateful anymore because I really don't like sweet potatoes. But God is the one who made sweet potatoes. I can thank God for something whether I like it or not just because He created it. And that sounds like sort of a silly example, but think of that. That is profound. That God asks us to be grateful for all things, whether or not it benefits me. It's not about me. It's about Him. It's about His world. It's about His greater plan for the world. It's not about my inconvenience on one day because it rained and rained out my party. It's about God providing rain to replenish the earth's water supply. And in that I can be grateful that God is doing what God does in taking care of us, in providing for us, and providing for all of us. And even though my party got rained out, He'll still take care of me. When a struggle comes along, it is so easy for many of us to say immediately, why God? Why did you allow this to happen? Are you going to get me out of this? I prayed about this once and nothing's happened. God, what are you going to do about it? Why aren't you doing anything?
Where are you? Do you even hear me?
Yes.
You left me, forgotten about me?
No. When we think those thoughts, that's the time to say, what has God done for me in the past?
Mhm.
How has he blessed me in the past? What stories do I have that shows God's provision, protection, wisdom, guidance? And all of us have those stories. You and I can tell them. I can tell of the time that my daughter had a surgery when she was 3 weeks old. We were between jobs, so we had no insurance. We were about to move out of state, and state governments didn't want to, neither state wanted to take care of us because we were so in limbo. And then in an amazing, I don't know, was it 2 or 3 weeks, we found out that the county where we lived was paying our $10,000 medical bill in full. Now, this was back in the 80s, so
Wow.
and today you can imagine what that amount would be.
Yeah.
And I have to remind myself so many times, if God did that amazing thing for us way back when, don't I think that he will continue to be faithful
Yeah.
and take care of me? And so I can sit here and say, God, I am thankful for what you're going to do. I can thank you that you're going to stay with me and that you're going to direct me out of this mess that I'm in, that you're going to show yourself and you're going to teach me about who you are, and you're going to make sure that I get all the way home where I need to be.
You know, Karen, as you're talking about this, what it reminds me of is the disciples. Jesus feeds 5,000 people, right? He feeds all these people. The disciples see this in their lives, this miracle done before them. They get in a boat, they cross the water, they get to this other place, and the first thing out of their mouths is, do we have enough bread? We don't have enough bread. And you just kind of, if you're reading the Bible from really thinking these are real people, and we're not just reading it to read it and check off our quota for the day, but you can't help but pause in that moment and go, did you not just see what he did on the other side of that water? And I am that way. Like today, he could do something crazy, amazing in my life. And tomorrow I'll be like, where are you? Do you even see what I'm going through? Yes, he has enough bread because God can do anything, which you reminded us of in our previous episode. But I am such a disciple.
Oh, I am too. And I think that the thing I have learned in my head that's still trickling down to my heart is that there is a direct connection between trust and gratitude. It's one thing to say, I trust God, but it brings it to a whole new level to say, God, I thank you that you're going to do this.
Yes. Yeah.
That really shows confidence that
Yeah.
we're able to say, thank you for what you're going to do. Even though I don't see it, I know that you're going to take care of me, and I thank you for it.
You remind me of a time. There was a time in our life we were going through something really rough, and I could not see the end. It was one of those hallway moments where a door had closed and nothing had opened, and I was staring at the wall. And I remember so clearly, there's those times in our hearts that thoughts come in and we know they're not ours. And what I felt in my heart was, I know the end from the beginning. Things that are out of your reach are in the palm of my hand. That reminds me of that step of faith of going, God, I'm looking at the wall right now, but you know the end of my story from the beginning, and things that are out of my reach are in the palm of your hand. Such a beautiful way to look at what God has done. And there's so many more things that God does for us and that God has given us, even beside physical things or material things. And that's spiritual blessings. Tell us about that part.
We've talked about the things that we have. We all know that those things are temporary. They are earthly. They won't last forever. The Bible says in Isaiah 48, the grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God stands forever. There's a verse in Ephesians 1 that says, praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who has blessed us in the heavenly realms with every spiritual blessing. That really made me stop and think. It's so easy to think about my physical blessings, the physical blessings that are right here on earth, but what are my spiritual blessings? So I started making a list of all the things that I would consider spiritual blessings. Grace, forgiveness, God's peace, faithfulness, goodness. Oh, I'm sure I'm leaving some out. I'm doing this from the top of my head. But all of those things aren't going anywhere. They are forever. God's grace will never run out. His love for you is unlimited. The Bible says so. And so we don't ever have to be afraid of, if I thank God for this today, it's going to be gone tomorrow. No, it'll still be there. It'll be there every single day and will go through eternity. And I need to do a lot better job of thanking God every day for His grace, His goodness, His power, His wisdom, so much that is available to me in extravagant amounts every day.
As we focus on those things, as we focus on thanking God for all we have, changing our perspective, right? And appreciating the fish tank in front of us, looking at what God has done and our spiritual blessings. Sometimes life is hard. And when it is hard, how can we thank God when life isn't cooperating with us? What do we do in the hard, Karen?
That is tough. And I know it's hard. There's days that people could stand in front of you and list all those blessings we've been talking about, and you would say, I don't want to hear it. You don't know how bad it is. And maybe scripture's not true, that this is impossible. Maybe it doesn't really mean thank God for all things. How can I possibly be thankful even when the worst of life has happened? And all you can do in those moments is to look again at who God is, what He thinks about you, and what His plan for you is. That He still loves you. He's still walking with you. I think of that story several years ago when miners were caught in a mine shaft in Chile. And I think, what was it like to live in the darkness? And that's what it feels like. We are walking in the dark. Psalm 139 reminds us that God sees us even in the darkest moment. So He sees us. He knows what's happening to us, and He will be with us. He is there in that dark moment. And He's the one who knows how to move from the darkness to the light. And He's going to get you there. He's the one that knows the best way. He's the one that has the wisdom of how to make this happen for you. He loves you. He's going to take care of you. And so even when the worst is happening, God will take care of you. He is with you. He will never leave you. He will never abandon you. He is always there.
Reminds me of what you said earlier when the lights go out. In December, we talk about so much Emmanuel, God with us. But in January, He's still with us too. When we've packed away the Christmas decorations, put away the tree, He is still with you, friends. So I pray that you find some encouragement in that. Any other thoughts, Karen?
I am still on this journey of gratitude. I might sound like I'm wise and have it all together, but
Well, you've written a book on it.
I've written a book, so I must know. I must be the most grateful person on earth. No, wrong. The ideas are still trickling from my head to my heart, and I'm reminding myself of these things just as much as I'm sharing with you. It's a journey all of us are on, just to learn to be grateful every day, every moment, because we have a big God, and He loves us all so much. He wants what's best for you, and for that I can be grateful.
Karen, thank you so much. Thank you so much for a beautiful lesson in all things. Now, you have 2 books. Did I say 2? Not 1, but 2. 2 books coming out really quick here. Tell us all about, you kind of gave us a snippet into Grateful Heart, which is coming out February 4th. Tell us a little bit more about those 2 books and how can we find them? And also, friends, you can pre-order them.
So both books are now available on pre-order at Amazon. With Open Ears will debut on January 28th and will be then available wherever fine books are sold. And then with Grateful Heart will be available on February 4th. Same thing. And you can also access information on my website at karenwingate.com. I'd love to hear how God has taken you through your journey. Write me, sign up for my weekly newsletter that you'll find on my website. And I'm sure that Denisha will have more information also through Reclaimed Story.
Yes, and you can find Karen on Facebook, on Instagram, on X, all the things. I'm so impressed with that because that is really tough to stay on top of all the things, Karen. I was very impressed. So yes, Karen Wingate. So, in your website, tell us your website. It's KarenWingate.com, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And we'll have everything in the show notes and your Facebook, Instagram. Stay connected, friends. And may you find gratitude in your heart in all things in 2025. Karen, thank you so much for being with us again.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. I pray you found hope in today's conversation and maybe even feel a little less alone in your story. Stay connected with us on Facebook and Instagram at Reclaimed Story. Want to learn more about living a reclaimed life and how you can be a part of our growing community of reclaimers? Check out our website at reclaimedstory.com. All of those links and more will be in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this inspirational podcast, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. Not only will you be the first one to know when new content comes out, but it is also a huge help in helping us reach more people to live the reclaimed life.